Thank you very much for your presence in this webinar. It's a pleasure for us to have today Professor Elsa Henriques with us. She's a friend for a long time and a very known person in our industry for the work done for the last years. I don't say how many, but just to say that she has a lot of experience working with the companies, and we, of course, understand that she can bring some reflections that she used to do about the evolution of our industry and these challenges on green manufacturing and the new borders for industry, which is the topic for today. This webinar is integrating a European project. It's a GEMSTONE project where we together with other clusters in Europe, are working together to develop the green manufacturing roadmaps. And it's a nice experience, not only because most of these partners are really very, very enthusiastic partners, and they do good jobs on this, and they are pushing for us also, but because this is an experience from Europe to create a new way to bring the possibility to involve companies in the project. This project is using the Cascade Fund process, meaning that one part of the project will be dedicated for specific calls to the companies from Europe. So be aware of this question, because we are launching some topics that you can apply and you can succeed and receive also your share on this program. So thank you for all the clusters that are involved. And now I'm coming again to the webinar to say that Professor Henriques is a PhD professor from the IST University in Lisbon, and now she has a role in FLAD, which is a foundation, a Portuguese, American and Portuguese foundation, and she's on the board of that. So a lot of experience on the cooperation side. And so, Elsa, it's now your time. Take the time to present and bring your ideas, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Rui, for your nice words. Okay. I don't know if everything you said is true, but okay, thank you. I believe I'm sharing my screen. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have my name. My background is essentially a professor, and once a professor, you are going to be a professor for all your life. So, but in the last 4 to 5 years, I've been essentially involved in the Luso-American Foundation, dedicated to the development of Portugal within the interaction with the United States. So that's, but of course, I'm still at IST, and I'm going to come back. So the challenge here is to say some words on green manufacturing and the new borders for the industry. I have some slides. I have some slides with me. I think you are seeing them. So feel free to interrupt me. Okay, please don't use the chat when you interrupt me, because I'm not going to check the chat, but say something. I believe you are not, it's possible to interrupt and to comment and to whatever you want. Of course, at the end, I believe you can have some kind of a discussion, more informal, I would say. Okay, so on green manufacturing, most of us believe that the concept of sustainability is a new concept. It's not so new because the concept emerged in the 70s, 80s, so we are talking about 50 years old, and it was largely motivated by environmental incidents and disasters associated to manufacturing, associated to the industry. So at that 87 in the United Nations, sustainability was, or sustainable development was defined as a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And so even if it's an old definition, it is quite actual, quite updated. And so sustainability involves the three interdependent and mutually reinforcing pillars that can support the sustainable development. You are talking about economics, okay? It's not possible to think on sustainability without thinking on viability, economic viability. But of course, if you look at the other pillars, we think on the environment. So it means that it needs also to be bearable, and the social pillar, meaning that okay, our developments, our sustainable developments need to be equitable and ethical. So you are merging not only one dimension, the ones that industry knows quite well, the economic dimension, but also the social and the environmental dimensions. Okay, so manufacturing. Manufacturing. So we should say that manufacturing has a significant influence on the global development and the global growth. We cannot think on development without thinking on manufacturing, and that trend is likely to continue due to the increased demand for consumer goods from a growing world and from our expectations of improving the quality of life. So we can say that manufacturing plays a critical role within our modern socio-economical systems. And for sure is going to be a contributor for that sustainable development. And in more recent years, Europe has assumed that reindustrialization is a way to keep and extend its competitiveness. And why is that? Okay, we can say that industry is critical to ensure a balanced labor market and skills pyramid. In fact, in manufacturing, the percentage of skilled jobs and well-paid jobs, I would say, is higher in industry than in services, even if most of us believe the other way around, but it's not. And more than that, industry and services are the two faces of the same coin. In fact, manufacturing creates value in the service sector. In general terms, you can say that 40% of the jobs in manufacturing are some way, in a way or another, connected to the service sector. And on average, services make up about 1/4 of all the inputs bought by the EU industry. So you cannot say services is the opposite of the industry. It's not. They are clearly linked, and one cannot live without the other. And of course, you can also think on manufacturing as a sector, as an environment in which innovation, automation, sophisticated processes, advanced technologies are in fact the core, the focus for the success strategies. So, in fact, we are saying that sustainability cannot live without believing in sustainable manufacturing. And those are two, what you can see here are two definitions on sustainable manufacturing. One linked to the design of industrial systems that needs to be sustainable. The other more oriented to the creation of goods, manufacturing products. Okay, those are two definitions, but in fact, we need to have sustainable industrial systems. And of course, those sustainable industrial systems need to produce sustainable products that minimize the environmental impacts and, more than that, conserve the natural resources, are safe for employees, communities, consumers, and for sure, need to be economically sound. So, the role of manufacturing industry in a sustainable system is the link between two systems, the socio-economical system, in which manufacturing, as is normal environment, manufacturing industry and consumers, but with the flows and inputs and outputs between that system and the environmental system, the consumed of natural resources, and of course the use of that system um, to to decompose the emissions and the wastes and the materials and the goods that arrive at the end of its life. So, and manufacturing is a business function. We can't need to say that. And for sure, engineers for large decades, centuries, I would say, engineers are well versed in establishing the economic value of engineering solutions for manufacturing. That is the normal day-to-day work of engineers. But in the other way around, when we are talking about measuring what the environmental impacts and the social performance, what is the outcome of our industries in terms of environmental impacts or social impacts, that's another issue. And that's much more difficult and much more challenging for engineers and for business responsibles, I would say. What you can say today and is that public policy is pushing for sustainable manufacturing, because manufacturing is at the core of any region, the development of any region, and because sustainability is a must. So, European Commission legislative proposal, I'm sure that they will soon require companies to monitor their environmental impact. The Green Deal initiative to combat climate change and environmental impact is saying that it's necessary to reduce the greenhouse gases by 55% compared to the 1990, okay, and improve the energy efficiency by more than 32%. So something needs to be done, and that something that needs to be done is for sure for sure companies are going to face regulations, standards, mandatory rules that are going to push them to monitor what their environmental impact is. And we can say that, okay, maybe that's for big companies, not for small companies. Maybe you are right. Maybe that is going to begin by the big companies, but because the industry is a supply chain, is a complex supply chain, when at the end, at the big companies, the integrators, the ones that are dealing with the market directly with complex products, are going to be pushed to monitor their environmental impact. For sure, they are going to push those rules to their suppliers, whatever they are. larger or small. So I believe that this will lead to companies being taxed on their carbon footprint. Okay, and we are not talking about 20 years from now or even 10 years from now. I think that to achieve the 2030 targets, okay, and 2030 is in 7 years from now, the only way to do that is, in fact, to come up with new regulation, new legislative proposal that at the level of states are going to be translated into laws, I would say. This will push industries towards a circular economy, establishing rules on extended producer responsibility for sustainability, and forcing companies to optimize their waste management and reach zero waste. And of course, it's not only a question of one company to reach zero waste. We are talking about all the supply chain of complex or simple products, all the companies achieving in the extended value chain of the final products to arrive to that circularity and to arrive to waste management and to reach zero waste. Of course, the European Green Deal is going to push for that. Of course, we know that now we have a war, that now all the geopolitics are changing, and for sure the focus or our public policy, maybe those issues are not in the front page of the journals, of the newspapers, but in fact, that's not something that you can delay much more. Okay, what the problem is there? I don't know if it's a problem. It's a framework. It's a challenge. It's something that companies, and I believe pushed by public policy, and I believe pushed by the pressures and the constraints introduced by the clients, whatever the clients, if clients are customers and final customers, consumer market, or if the clients are business companies that so in a business to business context. In fact, that's something that every company, from the small one to the big one, from the ones that produce simple products to the ones that are responsible for large and complex products. In fact, green manufacturing is something that is there. And my question is how to approach such a difficult problem inside a manufacturing business operation. And my proposal, or what I would like to present here, is that we can learn from yesterday. We can live for today and hope for tomorrow. The important thing is not to stop questioning. So that's a sentence, a quotation, a quote from Albert Einstein. But what I'm saying is that this is nothing completely new. Of course, in the environmental dimension, I think it's new, but we can deal and construct on top of what you already do and what companies are already very good at. So here I'm proposing in a very simple scheme. I'm saying that, okay, all the companies, I believe almost any important company, deals very well now with lean production. It's in the culture of companies. Everyone knows what it is. Every companies have lots of instruments and tools and culture quite established on the topic and the principles of lean production. Lean thinking is something that everyone knows what it is right now. And what I'm saying here is, what about introduce the green dimension on lean production? And based on system thinking, going to introducing the green dimension on lean manufacturing and come to what I call here the lean green manufacturing. And the objective is essentially to translate the environmental language to the manufacturing world. Okay? Not considering only the environmental language in terms of strategies, in terms of high-level frameworks, but converting it to operational things that every engineer, every worker, every collaborator in a company, side by side in the shop floor, can deal with. I don't know why my computer doesn't go on. I'm sure that I have more slides, but it doesn't work now. Oh. So that's my basic framework, introduce the green dimension on lean production, and some definitions or some discussions. System thinking is something that considering a complex system, that the system is more than the sum of the subsystems and components. So the components of a system only can be understood and only can be understood in the context of the relationships that any component has with other systems, subsystems, the environment, I would say. So manufacturing is the constant game of doing more with less. Therefore, manufacturing managers are always looking for new ways to increase efficiency. And to increase efficiency, we only can increase efficiency if I consider the whole system altogether. It's not sufficient to increase efficiency in one work cell, in one machine tool, in one department, because most of the times I'm improving locally, but I don't know what is the result in terms of the whole system. And that's the approach that lean thinking come up with. And it's not new, lean thinking, okay? So I consider that lean thinking is something that exists and is well assimilated by companies right now. But for lean thinking, it's the basic is considering that the expenditure of resources for any goal other than the creation of value for the end customer is a waste. And of course, lean thinking considers 7 wastes, waiting, overproduction, and quality. I think that everyone is aware of that. And that's the basic thing. The logic of lean thinking can be redesigned and integrated to the sustainability systemic concept. So if the objective of lean thinking is minimizing the waste produced in manufacturing, and that waste is a good thing. If I can identify that waste, if I can minimize the waste, if I can eliminate the waste, so theoretically, at least, I'm going to arrive to cost savings doing the same, creating the same value, but in fact, the waste costs money. So if I'm eliminating the waste doing the same, so I'm going to arrive to cost savings. But I can say, shall I arrive to a reduction of the environmental impacts? Because if I'm saying that I'm using less resources to do the same, theoretically, at least I'm going to arrive to environmental impacts. So integrating lean thinking and green dimension offers the foundation for a new business logic where the pillars of sustainability can be better understood by manufacturing and better support the business goals. And a new way of thinking that can contribute to balance the 3 sustainability dimensions, people, the 3P, people, profit, and planet. So what I'm saying is that green thinking deals with the environmental dimension, okay? Also reducing the wastes, but new wastes. Not those are not the same, because I'm producing with the maximum productivity in the use of natural resources. So I'm going to use natural resources, but I'm going to use the maximum productivity of those resources, and producing to minimum to minimize the environmental impact. And there are many green practices: eco-design, design for environment, life cycle analysis, green oil production, of environmental management systems, environmental performance evaluation. Those are instruments that are out there to evaluate, measure, reduce the environmental impacts, some of them with the focus on design, some of them with the focus on manufacturing, some of them with the focus on evaluating life cycle analysis, evaluating the result, how much impact am I going to have, some dedicated to regulations and organizational systems in place. Okay, I already said that waste has somehow different means, even if lean thinking and green thinking are focused on reducing waste. Those are waste with different meanings. Okay, lean manufacturing perceives waste as non-value adding to the customer. If some time is waiting time, if overproduction is non-quality, okay, those are things that are not adding value to the customer. Some of those may be necessary, but most of them are clearly a complete waste that can be eliminated from our manufacturing system without any impact on the final value that is delivered to the market or to the customer. So lean manufacturing is centering on preserving or enhancing value with less work. So time here is very, very important. The waste is normally associated with the time that waiting time or time it takes to produce a non-quality product or things like that. But green manufacturing perceives waste as the extraction and the disposal, so inputs or outputs of resources at rates that are beyond what which nature can support. Environmental waste is any excessive use of resources or substances released to the air, water, or land that could harm human health or the environment. Okay? And it's not only related to a company itself, but to the whole and the extended value chain, from my suppliers to my clients and to the end customer and to the user phase of the products, because some of those substances that are released to the air are released in my manufacturing system, but maybe some of them are released only during the use phase of the product or at the end of life. So lean manufacturing presents its own purpose, produces exactly what the customer wants. Okay, lean manufacturing, exactly when, lean manufacturing, at fair price, and minimum waste and environmental impact, and with the maximum productivity in the use of natural resources. That's a definition, so the proposal here is to introduce the green dimension in the practices that we already have in place. And so there is a process here that I can implement in any company. And that process 1 to 5 is very similar to what happens in lean manufacturing practices, I would say. So identify a stable value stream, identify the flow of value, the environmental aspects and impacts, not only the waiting time, not only the non-quality that are typical in not only the cycle time, not only the evolution in a timeline, the evolution of an add and non-add value of the activities. So identify the flow of value, the environmental aspects and impacts, measure those impacts, okay? Identify alternatives, for impact reduction or for a better productivity of the use of resources, and then continuous improvement. So pursue perfection. I have here only an example. It's a very simple example, but it's based on value stream mapping. And value stream mapping is a lean manufacturing technique. It's a tool. So it's one of the pillars, one of the 5 pillars of lean thinking. And it's a tool that can be used to analyze and design the flow of materials and information that are required to bring the product or the service to a customer or consumer. And here, it's not a product, so value stream mapping is nowadays a technique that is being used in manufacturing. And in manufacturing, I would say that's a common technique with several adaptations, more complex, more simple, but it's there. And now it's being used also in services, in complex services like hospitals and things like that. So, but value stream mapping is focused on the design of the flow of materials and information. And the output is normally a timeline in which we can identify not only the complex, the lead time of the whole process, but the different components of that lead time, okay, step after step, with value-added parcels and non-value-added parcels. If I identify the non-value-added parcels of that time, so it means that those are elected to be mitigated, reduced, and even eliminated. But while the traditional value stream application is focused on fulfill the client needs, in green manufacturing, value stream mapping focus on preserving the environment. So here we have in the slide the focus on traditional lean, okay, and then on the right side the focus on of value stream mapping with the green dimension. So we are focused not only on the value stream, but also on the site and its surrounding impacts, air, oil, groundwater, flora, fauna, whatever. Okay, emissions, consumptions of the resources, whatever they are, and the emissions, what happens to all those emissions that are outputs of my process and that are not considered in lean. Then we are going to calculate the global environmental impact, the rate of using energy and raw materials, the rate for waste, environmental assimilation, and the identification of opportunities to recycle, to introduce the circular economy, to reduce, to whatever. And for sure, here in green, it's not only the customer and not only focus on the creation of value to the customer as the traditional lean, but in lean green, we keep the customer for sure. We are not going to eliminate the customer, but we consider that you have another client, I would say. So the environment is the end customer. And the process is the traditional process. So in the beginning, the first step is to create the current state value stream map with the lean green framework that should consider all inputs and outputs. Okay, and those outputs is not only the final product, the thing that I'm going to sell and introduce in the market, but the outputs are raw materials, waste mass, consumable materials, waste mass, hazardous materials, waste mass, wastewater volume, amount of air pollution, and of course, the waste mass is not only for one material, are for different materials, whatever they are. And the inputs are the consumed water volumes, the energy, the raw materials, consumables, the hazardous materials. But the inputs, I would say that it's more or less similar to what lean approach already uses. The outputs in terms of the outputs, we are talking about not only the final product, the things that I consider is valuable, but all the other outputs that come out from the system. And of course, when I'm thinking on a value stream mapping based on lean green, all the other inputs and outputs that are conventional, that any conventional value stream map already uses, like changeover, cycle time, amount of work, of labor, rework, waiting times, inventories, all of that is there and presented. So only a very simple to illustrate what I'm saying. Imagine something that is a milling and washing process. Okay, and normally in a typical value stream mapping, the green line that is on below the milling and washing process is normally a timeline in which the up parts of the line are the added value time, and the bottom parts of the line are the time also, but it's time in which there is no waiting, there is no added value in the process. And here is the same, but one line of those exists for any resource that appears. Okay, so the top line is the amount of used resource, and the bottom line is the amount of needed resource. Okay, so here I only need a certain amount of water, but I'm using much more. Okay, and of course I can identify here a possibility to reduce that type of quantity. Okay, the material line shows the amount of material used by its process in the value stream, and the amount of materials that end up in the product or are clearly needed and add value from a customer perspective. So at the end, I know that I have to treat 91,000 liters and 500 liters of water that is not going to be incorporated in the product. Okay, and at a certain point, I need to treat and to consider some destination for that water that is an output from my process. Here is another example, also with the washing, I would say, but here is the parts washing and dust removal, so with acid. And I have here, that's a classical process, that's the current state. And in green, I have the inputs of each process without quantities, but of course I need to introduce here quantities. And with green, I have the outcomes, the outputs of any of those processes that needs a solution. Okay, so I introduce fresh water in the acid wash deep tank. I introduce fresh water and acid, and the result, the outcome, is acidic wastewater. Okay, and for sure that acidic wastewater no longer can be released in the environment and needs to have some kind of treatment, and that costs money. Okay, and acid fumes, and maybe that the acid fumes do not cost money yet, but I believe that somehow and sometime in the future they are going to cost money also, if not to treat, at least incorporated in the price of the acid. And that's the future state. After identifying the inputs and outputs with quantities, of course. Okay, here I do not have quantities. Two opportunities were identified, some opportunity to reduce the acid use. through recycling, and the opportunity to reduce the water use through cascade raising. And the outcome and the proposal for a future state, for the vision of that small manufacturing line, is some recovering acid, okay, and some regeneration unit to include the fresh acid in place on site and to create here some kind of circularity. Okay, so circular economy is not only to consider that cars at the end of the automotives, at the end of their life, need to be repair or needs to be recycled, needs to be. It's not that. We can introduce circular concepts in our companies. Okay. At the end, in summary, lean and green manufacturing introduces a new dimension, the green, into traditional lean thinking aspects, and that's motivating a conceptual transition. And I consider that kind of approach is very, very important, because what you need now is the translation of political objectives that everyone knows, everyone is aware of. But in fact, on our day-to-day life, we need the instruments. We don't know how to do. And I believe that you have small things to implement. And that means that we can focus on a simultaneous top-down and bottom-up approach. Top-down because I believe that the leadership of any company needs to be committed with that. It's the same with lean manufacturing. You cannot implement lean manufacturing if the leadership of a company is not committed. But in fact, the guys that come up with the improvements, that come up with the solution, that come up with the implementation of new solutions, step by step, are the engineers and the operators. And so it's something that is a bottom-up approach for deploying continuous environmental improves. And of course, lean and green is focused on non-traditional sources of savings. So theoretically, at least, you don't need to increase costs. Okay, I myself do not believe completely on that. I'm not saying that we are not introducing additional costs. I'm saying that it's not necessary. Most of the things we can improve sometimes, and maybe often we can say that our solutions and our improvements can result in a reduction of cost. So it should be a continuation of a continuous improvement culture, where lean culture is already in place. And for sure, it's very important in those examples. I only have here the identification of inputs and outputs, but of course, for a unit of product, it can be a batch, it can be the production of a month, the production of a year, it can be a unit of a product. Of course, we need to quantify how much fresh water do I need. And because I have fresh water and I have acid, sometimes I have improvements or solutions that increase the amount of acid and reduce the amount of fresh water. So we need to compare in terms of environmental impacts, those trade-offs. Okay? Most of the times it's not possible to reduce everything at the same place, at the same time. We reduce something, but we introduce another waste that was not present in the beginning. And because we don't know, those are different materials. So it's not a question of mass, it's a question of environmental impacts and of costs. It's important also the cost. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying costs are not important. But in terms of environmental impact, the only way to compare and to analyze those trade-offs and the benefit that I introduce, of course, you need to do some kind of life cycle analysis to convert, to compare and to convert different materials into the same units, eco points, okay, or CO2 equivalent, some kind of unit and measure that can be used for us to compare. And last but not least, and maybe it's the most difficult, this is not something that can be only introduced in a company. So I'm saying that we need to use the extended company. But because we need to use the extended company, suppliers and the clients, okay, that's why I strongly believe that sooner than later, even the SMEs and the smaller companies are going to be impacted by the new requirements that are going to be mandatory on green manufacturing. And it might be by law, or it can be by pressure from the clients and suppliers. Thank you very much. I think I took a little bit more time than I have available, but
Thank you, Elsa. It was really very nice presentation. The lean green manufacturing and the way you see this linkage between the green manufacturing and the need to sustain companies in the market. I open now a period for questions. I don't know if someone wants to make it, please. The first question is always difficult. I have one. For you, Elsa, what are the major difficulties to implement green lean manufacturing, and how to make clients perceiving that value? Because normally they are focused on prices. This is a very difficult question, I know, but for sure you have some reflection on that.
yeah, of course, it depends on the company and the power that the company has to deal with the other members of this on the supply chain and the value chain, the network, the value network. What I'm saying here is that frequently we don't increase costs on that. Okay. And this is not frequently we don't increase costs on that because nowadays we already have to treat some of our wastes. It depends on the waste, but we need to treat some of our wastes. And so I don't see it as something that to be done, we increase costs. And for sure, this is not something that I'm saying we are going to wake up one morning and change everything, and now we are going to be green. Okay, and all our wastes are going to be treated, and we are going to have all of our wastes in a circular process. We are going to recycle, reuse, whatever. This is not working. This is not going to work like that. This is a process, but it's going to be a fast process. Okay, and it's not only a question of any company to pass that information and that increase of costs, if they exist, to the clients. It's something that we need to be prepared to, because at a certain point, our clients, in a business-to-business context, our clients are going to demand for. And at that point, even if not everything in place, we should be prepared to answer in a very fast time frame. Okay, so I don't believe in revolutions. Okay, I don't like the words revolutions because we only can perceive. Of course, there exist the revolutions exist. I'm not saying that, but we only can perceive the dimension of a revolution several years after. So it's not during the revolution that we know that you are in a revolution. So I'm not saying that this is a revolution. That's a process that companies need to be aware. And I'm not young, as you know, as you can see. And I remember quite well when I was young, the perspective of companies when business-to-business companies, so we are not talking about companies that produce end products for the final market, business-to-business that produce complex products and complex goods, when they say, oh, my client is demanding me that I need to be certified with a quality standard, whatever it is. And it was a mess for the leadership of those companies. They, most of the times, I'm talking about the 70s and the 80s, most of the times the leadership of those companies do not perceive the benefit. They only perceive the higher costs that they believe those standards are going to implement, to introduce. And now you are 40 or 50 or 30 years later, and the same guys that are now old like me cannot understand their companies, cannot understand their manufacturing systems without those standards. Okay, and I believe that the same is going to happen here. But I need to be prepared and to be aware of all those things, and I believe that tools like value stream mapping is something that the engineers, the operators can use, can think. It's a new dimension on the continuous improvement that is already in the companies.
Very good. If we measure, we can manage. That is the question all the time. Thank you, Elsa, very much for your very, very, very interesting presentation and to give us a new focal or other way to see how can we integrate and implement these processes in the companies. So thank you for your support. I don't know if there is any additional question. If not, we close here this fantastic webinar. See you there. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you for all participants, and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.